I move we adjourn. Oh, no, we didn't.
No, we've recessed
I'm sorry, I had a
closed
senior
session,
moment.
and we'll be reporting out momentarily. Guess redevelopment would be next.
Yes, we are awaiting our cue from downstairs.
There we are. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Tuesday, March 1st, 2011 meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency. Mr. Kasakian, could you call the roll, please?
Agency members Najarian.
Here.
Montero.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
Chair Friedman. Vice Chair Draymond.
Here. And could we hear your report,
The
please?
agenda for the March 1st, 2011 regular meeting of the Glendale Redevelopment Agency was posted on Thursday, February 24th, 2011 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you, Mr. Kasakian. Our first item,
Approval of minutes.
a motion for the minutes.
That the one I was missing again?
I will move them.
This is, the agenda reflects that the regular redevelopment agency meeting was actually a special redevelopment
That was in the morning,
agency
yeah.
meeting.
It actually says that it's a special meeting.
On the minutes, yes. On the
Yes.
agenda, it shows regular.
I'll move the minutes.
Second.
Minutes will stand approved as submitted. Our next item,
Next item is oral communication. No cards were submitted for this.
close oral communications, and let's move on to the next item.
Next item on the business agenda at 6A is Director of Community Development, continued from February 15th and February 22nd, 2011, regarding response to the owner participation proposals for development of property located at 123 West Colorado Street and 230 South Orange Street. A1 is a resolution accepting the Crusoe-affiliated proposal and rejecting all other proposals, and directing staff to negotiate the terms of an exclusive negotiating agreement with Crusoe-affiliated.
Okay,
I'll move
thank you.
6A1. Oh, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Good try.
Let me go, I believe, to our city manager.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the agency, we again have letters from Mr. Crusoe and Mr. Patel dated March 1, and they say, as the former letter did, the parties mutually request that the agenda item considering our respective projects considered by the Glendale Redevelopment Agency be continued for 1 week to the date of March 8, 2011. Both are signed by the principals, Mr. Caruso and Mr. Patel.
Right? And
And that's without further public notice.
Without further public notice.
so we would need a motion, though, wouldn't we?
You
I'll
can do by
move.
unanimous consent.
If we have the consent
There's
of
no
the
objection to that
agencies,
motion.
there's no
Okay.
objection, then by, not really, then by unanimous consent. All right, very good. Our next item, please.
Next item at 6B is Director of Community Development regarding Historic Alex Regional Theater Quarterly Report, revised capital improvement projects list and front facade, forecourt, and parking lot expansion projects. B1 is a motion to note and file the quarterly report for a period of October 1 to December 31, 2010. At 2 is a motion approving revised capital improvement project list. 3 is a resolution authorizing the preparation of specifications, bid documents, and authorizing the solicitation of bids under spec number R41 for the front facade restoration project.
Well, it says here that we're going to the Director of Community Development, but I'm guessing we're going elsewhere.
Actually, Mr. Chair, we'll go to Helena Babolian, Senior Administrative Analyst for the staff report. Helena?
Thank you. Agency Vice Chair Draymond and members of the agency, before I begin, I'd like to apologize for Exhibit 3 of your report not being in color. We did provide the color versions prior to the beginning of the meeting, so I hope you'll glance through those while I make my presentation.
Thank you. They're so much more colorful than the black and white version.
With that, we're here to present the second quarter financial report from Glendale Arts on the financial status of the Alex Theater and to provide you with updates on 3 capital improvement projects. As the owner of the Alex Theater, the Glendale Redevelopment Agency receives quarterly reports on the financial status of the theater. And this past quarter, I'd like to report that Glendale Arts saw an increase in attendance, event activities, and rental revenues when compared to last year. Glendale Arts continues to control costs in an effort to remain competitive in the region. As part of the management agreement with Glendale Arts, they must maintain a reserve account with a cap of $100,000, and I'm happy to report that as of this report, this fund exists with that specified amount. In addition, they must also maintain a capital reserve account, which is to be used for capital projects and maintenance projects at the theater, and this account also has a healthy balance to take care of such projects. In order to put the Alex Theater in the best physical condition prior to the expiration of the Glendale Central Redevelopment Project area, staff worked together with the Alex Theater to prepare a list of capital improvement projects. The agency approved this list as part of the lease and has committed to funding several projects since 2007. As the list is primarily a planning tool, it is periodically revised and presented to the agency for approval. Our goal is to work with the Alex Theater to present and prepare a list beyond 2015 when agency funding is anticipated to terminate. One of the projects identified in the capital improvement projects list was the theater expansion. Although this project was never clearly defined, nor did it have a timeline for implementation, today we're here requesting that this project be moved up on the priority list in light of the Cinema Lofts development to the south. When this project was added to the list, one of the critical components was to address the operational deficiencies of the theater, including additional dressing room space, VIP reception room space, and both office and storage space needs. Staff anticipates retaining the services of an architect experienced in historic theater expansion to address the theater's many operational needs, as I stated, in anticipation of the development. As we move forward with this project, we will bring it back to you for further review. Another project identified as part of the CIP list was the restoration of the front facade of the theater. The front facade was originally restored when the redevelopment agency purchased the theater back in 1992. In 2010, staff hired Tatiana Thompson, a historical conservator, to provide a report on her recommendations on how to restore this important area of the theater. Ms. Thompson prepared a report which was presented to the HPC, the Historical Preservation Commission, and approved, and her report will be used for bidding purposes upon agency approval today. We would anticipate that this work will take place between spring and summer of this year. And lastly, we would like to provide the agency with an update on the forecourt redesign project. This project was initially slated to improve the overall functionality, aesthetics, and rental flexibility of the forecourt area. However, as the project moved forward in the design phase, certain components were unable to be carried out due to building and fire code restriction. And furthermore, Glendale Arts reevaluated the project in terms of both budget and long-range planning. An important part of that is the previous project I talked about, the expansion of the theater to the south parking lot area. The results equal a cosmetic upgrade to the forecourt area, which will provide a more welcoming area for patrons with the addition of cypress trees, seat benches, new lighting, and painting. Because the theater is a historic building, design review approval falls under the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission. At its January meeting, the HPC unanimously approved this project, and therefore no agency action is required today. It was purely an informational item. With that, that concludes my report. Barry McComb and Jack Alloway from the Alex Theater are here to answer any questions the agency members may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any agency member comments on this? Do you have questions or comments? Mr. Quintero.
Well, the question I have, so we really don't have the final details yet as to what's going to be proposed and so forth.
For the forecourt project?
Yeah.
The plans that are presented to you were the plans that were presented to HPC. They approved the project with those design plans, and the next step would be to work with the architect to put together the construction documents.
Okay, and what didn't work out? You mentioned that because of fire issues or whatever, there were some plans that we had that didn't work out. What were they?
Primarily the ability to hold two functions at the theater, meaning while the theater is being rented out for an occasion, to also have a event at the forecourt, because the forecourt must remain free and clear for exiting purposes, and that was the biggest obstacle.
So no tables could be set up or whatever?
No permanent fixtures, correct.
Permanent fixtures, how about something other than a permanent fixture?
The seat benches and cypress trees that are presented for review will be permanent. However, they do provide the exiting width that the fire department requires. And so we feel that although the original project isn't able to be carried out, the cosmetic upgrades will provide a welcoming area for theater patrons, and we would like to use that extra energy, fund, and effort to expand the theater, which will solve a lot of the theater's needs that the forecourt project was unable to solve.
I'd like to talk to Barry.
Absolutely. But, do you mind if we ask any other questions?
Yeah.
Mine was just a comment. I was looking at this photo of 1948, and I think I'm one of those children down there going in for the preview.
That actually says 1918, Mr. Weaver.
That's where I thought I saw your picture, actually.
If I'm that old, I'm really in good shape. But, no, I remember going to studio previews there in the old days. I forgot the cafeteria was right next door. Did you remember, or are you too young?
Mr. Weaver, that way predates me, I'm sorry to tell you.
The cafeteria was right next door to it. I had forgot that. Got subdivided up. No, but other than that, I'd have a question for the experts.
Okay, and
I have a question, and it's about the funding, and I'm really hypersensitive, I think, to what could potentially happen to the redevelopment agency. Part of the request is that we move this up in the priority list because we've got the theater lofts coming in, but I see part of our budget process was looking forward to the year 2015. And I'm just concerned about budgeting this money, jumping this ahead in the priority list where other projects may be left behind in case there's a event which vaporizes the redevelopment agency. So I hate to go through these projects on a piecemeal basis. What I'd really like to see is as the picture becomes clearer in Sacramento, find out what we can realistically expect to have in terms of a budget over the next 5 years, over the life of the agency, and decide how we're going to spend that. I mean, this is clearly a worthy project. It's our centerpiece, performing arts theater, as well as many other things. But if we move this up, are we leaving other projects off the table in case there's a grab by Sacramento?
Let me try to address your question, agency member Najarian. As part of the lease with Glendale Arts, the agency committed to funding these capital improvement projects, and this theater expansion was one of those projects identified on that list. It never had a year that it was going to be implemented for, but our goal was always to do this project prior to 2015 when the agency was set to expire. In light of what's happening in Sacramento, when we came before you in January for that special meeting, we took steps to try as best as we could to protect those funds. And because we have a contractual obligation with Glendale Arts for those projects, we felt that those projects were, for lack of a better word, safeguarded against any actions that Sacramento can take. As more information becomes available from Sacramento, we'll definitely come back to you and say, this is what's happening, this is how it's affected our funding, if at all, and report back to you at that time. But the reason for bringing these projects back to you was because some of the funding amounts continually change, and so this was our best way to have you involved in the process as we moved forward without saying, yes, we approve all of these projects back in 2007, knowing that things and circumstances change.
I would like to see on a future agenda, if I can get support, a more clearer, comprehensive picture. I'm quite aware that this changes almost on a hourly basis in Sacramento. But just so we know, I think personally, I think we're going to get hit in one way or another, and I want to make sure that we're making our decisions in a conservative manner, and we don't leave any project off the table just because it was the last one on our agency director's desk to bring before us.
Mr. Starbird.
I agree. I agree with that.
I think we'll be in as good a position as we can be in the next month or so to do that. I completely agree with the strategy that Elena has outlined here. All of these decisions, you run a little bit of risk depending on what happens. But in this case, it probably is the best way with these fundings in this project to get as much commitment and as a result cover from a state take as we possibly can at this time. The best assessment I've received in the past week is that it's highly unlikely that the governor is going to be successful in eliminating redevelopment by July 1. That doesn't mean it's not still there as a threat, and we're still assuming that there's a strong possibility that can happen. I think we'll be in a much better position in the upcoming month as we bring to you some actions, for example, for an additional bond issue, which is probably the most secure way to secure your resources. As we bring that to you, I think we'll be in a better position for you to spell out the current projects we have, the funding we currently have available, and the implications of either a state take or a state elimination of redevelopment, if indeed that occurs between now and the start of the fiscal year. In all likelihood, there will be some level of state take. Everything I've heard is there's going to have to be some money offered up to try and address the $1.7 billion need the state has that they have now plugged with the elimination of redevelopment. There isn't $1.7 billion available, however, and that's a realization the state has to come to. But likely there'll be some take. How much it is, we don't know. I think we'll be in a much better position probably in the next 30 days or so to bring you that assessment as we talk about the possibility of a bond issue as well. But you're right, the situation is terribly dynamic, and we are doing, frankly, the best we can to try and look for ways to protect our local resources here. Mr. Najarian, you mentioned to me recently one that you heard that LA City is considering. We're going to go look at that and see what they're doing and what benefit that might provide. And so that's kind of how everybody seems to be approaching this, is keeping your ear to the ground to figure out what might be going on in Sacramento, at the same time looking for ways to protect our resources so they can remain locally here. Everybody seems to be doing the same thing. But I would recommend you proceed with this. I think it's a way to make sure this critical project can have funding and as best we can protect at least this amount of resources if indeed the governor is successful.
Mr. Lanzafame, I saw you sneaking to the front. Maybe you weren't sneaking, but you were moving. Now you're sitting very near the podium. Is there something you wanted to tell us? No.
But he comes.
Well, you're shaking your head no, and now
I
you're
know,
walking to the
I
microphone.
know.
So.
Ms. Baboli and Mr. Starbird outlined the strategy very well, and that's what I was just going to add to, but they've covered that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. McCollum, if you wouldn't mind.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. First of all, is there anything you would like to add before I go to questions from my colleagues?
I think just to maybe go back and expand on the forecourt project briefly, some of the other reasons that the project has been scaled back is as we got in to looking at the original project and the scaled back project, we also found that some of our original goals, such as tenting the forecourt with a canopy, were against some of the current fire codes. Some of the things we wanted to do with heaters. We were looking to take out the concession stands to try to increase the amount of square footage in the forecourt and replace those with portable carts. When we looked at the requirements from the health department and having to construct off-site storage for those carts, there were just many hurdles that, from a financial standpoint, didn't really offset what the gains were going to be. And that's kind of what led us to the modified design that you saw in your packet.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. McCollum. Don't go away.
Right. Well,
Mr. Quintero.
that was my question. I mean, as the operator, general manager, et cetera, didn't you feel that there was a sort of revenue source that could be, that this court alone without opening the Alex, other than the restrooms, that this would be a significant revenue source that would sort of help the overall efforts?
That actually was one of our original intentions, and well, we never hoped to hold events out there while the theater was opened. We were hoping to do more in the way of receptions while the larger theater was not in use. But in speaking with the fire and building and safety, it really is considered a pass-through area and not a separate room. And that kind of goes beyond my understanding of what makes one different from the other. But it really, from a code standpoint, is not considered a separate holding area. We are now, however, with the potential expansion into the parking lot, looking at space such as the new VIP room that we're hoping to incorporate as part of that project to replace the usage that we would originally use that forecourt space for in this new addition, so that we would be able to capture the lost revenue that we now don't have in the forecourt modification in what hopefully in time will become the expansion into the parking lot. The revenue opportunity still exists, but it just didn't make sense to be able to do it in the forecourt.
No, I mean, there's this, and Mr. Starbird and I have had this discussion, there's this sort of continuing trend where we've got these fire code issues. They don't seem to have fire code issues in L.A. City. They don't in Pasadena. Now we can't, I mean, I can see a tent with gas heating inside is not a good idea, but now we can't even tent this area in the summer when there won't be any need for heat.
Actually, my understanding is was not a local code. It was a change in state code from actually the time that the chess park was done. Like if you look at the chess park across the street where there is the covering, it was a change in code from the time that that project was put up to current standards, and that was what was preventing us from being able to do it.
Well, look, for my sense of this is that we need to produce revenue from this theater.
Absolutely agree.
It really, irritates me that somehow we can't come up. This is the perfect setting. It's right off of Brand. This is a perfect setting for whether it's corporate use, nonprofit use, et cetera. We've done it ourselves. We've been there quite often for different events in this court. And I mean, it just really doesn't make any sense to me that we can't work something out that's going to make this a revenue producer. It's just a perfect ambiance, perfect location, and now we're having to scale it back. We're going to the side. You're basically talking about that south area, that parking.
What's currently our backstage parking lot area,
Yeah,
correct?
I mean, that's not particularly attractive. Whenever the lofts are built, then you're going to have a tall building right next to it. I mean, this doesn't make any sense, quite frankly. I'm really... The design is okay. I mean, I like the seating around the cypress, and the overall effect is going to be an upgrade, but I sure wish we would have stuck to the original plan and worked through some of these difficulties. I just find it, I go to all these different events in other cities, and I just find it very difficult to believe that we can't, and I'm not disparaging you, but just very difficult to believe that we can't put together a sort of venue in this courtyard. I can see if the theater is being used, obviously, for fire safety, then get people out. We want to clear. But when you're not using the theater, this can't be used as a sort of multifunction type of space?
All I can say is, obviously, from when we originally started work on this project, we spent well over the last year really approaching this from every angle possibly, looking at every scenario possibly, and really were not able to come up with any viable workarounds, the codes that were in place. Now, what the new design will be able to do, I mean, obviously we still hold receptions in the lobby areas, like we did just a few days ago for the kickoff of the Downtown Dash. Having a more attractive outdoor entryway environment will certainly improve the marketability of that space, because certainly we'll have spillover when we're using the lobby in that capacity. It's not the same. as having an outdoor environment, but it will improve the marketability of those spaces. The hospital had a very nice entryway that they created to the downtown dash reception. This will improve that. It also, I think, will improve the marketability of the forecourt from a film shoot standpoint. It's looking pretty tired right now, and as we looked at this design, we really looked at it from a director's standpoint of using that space for red carpet welcome shoots and things of that nature. And the feedback we got was very positive, so we're hoping that it will result in increased revenue from that standpoint for us as well.
All right, Mr. Weaver.
Paints, whatever that will be used on doing the repair, as the materials that are used, have they improved since the early 90s, so they won't tend to flake off as much or lose their shine, intensity of the colors?
On which particular surface, Councilman Weaver?
Wherever you're painting, replacing the paint, we see pictures where it's flaking off. So you're going to clean it, I guess, and put new paint on, brighten colors?
Actually, if you're referring to the front facade restoration, I'm going to defer that question to Jack Holloway, who I think is probably better suited to respond to the materials that we'll be using in that project.
Just wonder if the materials have improved in 15, 20 years.
Mr. Alway.
Good afternoon, members of the agency. To answer the question about the paint remaining in better shape than it has over the last 15 or 20 years, it boils down to better surface preparation, where the surface will be thoroughly cleaned and scoured. A lot of the work that was put on in '92 was just put right over existing paint.
Okay, that explains it.
So it should adhere much better and hopefully be a little more color fast with what we're using.
Mr. Quintero's in here, but we found the same thing at the airport, Bob Hope Airport. The yellow line markers, we continued to paint over them and over them. The FAA came out and dinged us because it's peeling off too many layers. Now we're having to take it all off down to the base and prep it the correct way. So I understand what you're saying.
The people who did the investigation for us found 5 or 6 layers of paint underneath.
5 or 6, that'll do it. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Let me see it. All right, then let's start, Mr. Weaver, with comments.
I think the glass doors that you're now going to put in place, rather than just the wrought iron, what you have there, it's going to be glass panels now, right?
It's part of the forecourt project. We are replacing the gates at the front with glass doors.
Right, which will help tremendously because I've been there when the wind is shooting through there, when it's chilly out and you can freeze out there. It'll be a buffer for wind shooting through. That should help.
It actually will serve several purposes for us. Certainly, it will help the gust of winds blowing into the forecourt, too. I think it will actually make the forecourt feel more open even during the time periods when the theater is closed, because the gates certainly make the Alex seem closed off to people.
That'll be glass.
And it will also help us from a security standpoint during shows, because the gates will be able to be closed once we, or the doors rather, once we allow people in the theater, because they'll have panic hardware on them. We have to keep the gates open during performances, have more people down there to be sure that only ticketed people are allowed back and forth.
I think that'll be a big change there.
Yes, and they'll be very attractive because we'll be taking the sunburst, which is over the top of the doors going in the theater, will be etched into the glass down at the front gate as well. So I think people will find them very attractive.
That'll improve that, a nice entrance. The other, I don't have a problem with what you're doing. I think, well, I've said it before and I'll say it again and I'll continue to say it. In my opinion, my only opinion, until we master plan the area north and south of the Alex Theater, it's not going to be done right. Doing this, but master planning it, I think would have been better. It's just my own opinion. I'll vote for this, but just my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Mr. Najarian.
Explain the glass doors again. These are the ones that are that lead directly into the downstairs lobby?
Back of the...
No, actually, if down at the street entrance now, where we have the wrought iron gates across the front of the theater, the gates will be taken out, and they'll be replaced with glass doors.
And you'll keep those heavier, also wrought iron doors?
They're gone.
The existing doors at the entrance to the lobby?
Yes, those are historic doors, so they'll remain in place.
I was
Yes.
confused about that.
Yes.
So I'm okay with that. No, I'm fine with it. I think it's about time. And I mean, it is unfortunate that we couldn't tweak those codes to permit more of a multi-use of that forecourt area. And we've really, we discussed this with some of the more creative architects in the city as to how to get by these.
This was a topic that members of the Alex Theater Committee, which has several architects who serve on that committee, with members of city staff, members of the fire department, members of building and safety. Personally, I think everybody really went above and beyond trying to find workarounds to accommodate our initial list of goals that we had for the project, but there certainly were limitations with what we could do.
Thank you. Mr. Howard. Mr. Howard, you had your hand up.
Quickly, Mr. Vice Chairman, we've heard the comments from Mr. McComb. With your permission, I'd like to take a fresh look at that, working with fire, Mr. McComb, and building and safety staff, and a member of my staff, to take a hard look at that. Issue of canopies, the type of material, etc. May or may not be able to be used.
Well, it may be academic anyway if you can't assemble there.
Well, we're going to look at that too.
Yeah, we do. One thing I should point out, we are able, on a special event permit standpoint, to take out a permit to tent the forecourt for a special event. We just can't have a permanent structure tenting the forecourt.
All right, Mr. Quintero.
Yeah, as currently presented, what is a ballpark figure for the work, what we've shown here?
You want to address the budget?
Just a rough idea of what it's going to cost for this layout.
For the forecourt project.
For the permanent structure?
Agency member Quintero, the estimated cost is $350,000.
Okay. So $350 for what we...
The bulk of that is for the glass entry door system.
Okay. All right. Any other comments?
Well, with regard to the doors, I'm sorry to favor this. How resistant are they going to be towards vandalism and etching and all that? Because that's something that you see troubling, and you see it all too often.
The doors, one of the reasons they are more expensive is because they're custom. It's a custom size to fit the existing side. They will have a protective coating for etching.
All right. Thank you. All right. I don't have anything to add that would be exciting or new. I support it. And if we're able to have any movement from our legal folks, related to assembly and or canopies, et cetera, that would be very helpful, because I think you've heard it expressed by a number of agency members, and I think by Mr. McComb clearly, and his staff, that it would be very useful, very helpful, not only in generating revenue, but just in general operation of the facility. Mr. Weaver.
In relation to that spot, watching a special on the engineering of an empire, Roman Empire, and I never realized that the Colosseum in Rome had flaps like we now have, individual flaps, that were closed by the Navy, Roman Navy. They would stand up on top, and if it got too warm, they pull these strips that go the whole way across in the Colosseum to cool it for the audience. And that wasn't a total canopy, but it was sheets with space in between.
And I bet they didn't have to contend with their fire department on the issue.
They sure didn't.
All right.
the emperor.
This is a motion to note and file? At least the first one is. Mr. Kasakian, would you be kind enough to read the 6B1, please?
6B1 is motion to note and file the quarterly report for a period of October 1 to December 31, 2010.
And Mr. City Attorney, can we take this in conjunction with anything else?
Yes, you can take all three together
Can I go all
or
three
individually as you
together?
wish.
I would have it separated because I just can't go with spending this much money and not have what I think is what the Alex needs. So I'm going to vote against the...
Which one, Mr.
I would suppose it would be 2 then, the motion approving the revised capital.
I'll move 6B1. Note and file.
I'll second that.
All right. That is a motion to note and file. Do we need to take a roll call on that? We do not, do we? No. All right.
And you can do it by unanimous consent. If there's no objection, it will be so ordered.
All right. I think that we can handle that one by unanimous consent.
Mr. Draymond, I'll move 6B2.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Mr. Lansford.
The forecourt project is not included in the capital improvement list. It was a separate item that was for information. We could take the direction that you've given us, but we would hope that all of you would agree with the capital improvement revised list. And then we'll take that direction back, if that's the will of the agency, on the forecourt project.
You lost me.
Ms. Pobolian can straighten me out then.
The forecourt project was included in the list of CIP projects. The forecourt project is not included as an action item for your approval today because, as I stated earlier, design review for the forecourt falls under the purview of the HPC, and it's provided for you as just for informational items, so you don't have to recuse yourself from voting.
No, I was going to vote no.
There is no recusal here.
However, with the new information, I will make
That late-breaking bulletin.
I'll make the motion at 6B2.
All right.
The motion was made by Councilmember.
I'll second it.
All right. So the motion is, we have a motion and a second. Mr. Kasakian, if you would, please.
Agency members Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Chair Friedman, Vice Chair Draymond.
Yes.
I'll move 6B3. Comment?
Second?
We have a second. Mr. Kasakian.
Agency members Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
No.
Weaver,
Aye.
Chair Friedman, Vice Chair Draymond.
Yes.
Draymond, the long example I gave on the Coliseum, instead of having a full tent, I was trying to say there's other ways to put a tenting on that will give the shade from the heat and still allow ventilation. I don't know if that makes any difference in the selection process.
All right.
Yeah,
Very good.
and by the way, I agree. I mean, I don't think a full tenting was what is called for here. The idea is to have an open-air environment, but some
can pull it back to the
flexible
side.
type of...
Well, I think that was what was discussed, but I think we'll discover that when the city attorneys...
We're going to revisit that.
Okay. Thank you so much. Our next item, Mr. Kasakian.
6C is public hearing, Director of Community Development regarding Walt Disney Imagineering WDI Machine Shop project to be located at 900 Grand Central Avenue. At C1 is motion approving Stage 1 and 2 design review subject to comments and conditions from the agency.
Thank you, Mr. Kasakian. Let me open the public hearing, and let us go to our Director of Community Development.
And we'll go to Alex. Do you want to go directly to Alex Castillo? Alex Castillo, Project Manager.
All right, Mr. Castillo, the first question everyone wants to know that's looking in is, what does WDI stand for?
WDI stands for Walt Disney Imagineering.
All right.
Good afternoon, Agency Vice Chair Draymond and members of the agency. I'm going to be actually brief with my presentation and hand it over to Neil Juergens, Disney's representative. The project is located in the Disney's Grand Central Creative Campus, located at 900 Grand Central and 932 Grand Central Avenue. The project is adjacent to older tilt-up buildings and warehouse and office buildings. The project is to demolish the existing 932 building and actually add onto the existing 900 building with a with a, I'm sorry, the project is to demolish the 932 building and then add on to the 900 Grand Central building. And this is to accommodate the machine shop, which will be relocating from the North Hollywood office. This building will house the metal, welding, wood, plastic, paint, and hydraulics. And to further discuss the design of the project, I have Neil Jurgens here.
Mr. Jurgens.
Thank you, Vice Chair, members of the council, and staff members. Actually, I've got this one right.
It's below your
We'll work through our video here.
Julian, it's below your head.
Thank you. I am here today to present the new Walt Disney Imagineering Research and Development Facility proposed for 900 Grand Central. This project will be in the eastern part of our redevelopment area, or the area that's bounded in red up here on the screen. And in yellow, that shows 900 Grand Central and 932. As Mr. Castillo said, the plan is to demolish 932 and expand onto 900 with a new 20,000 square foot prefabricated steel building. I also have with me today Jimmy Dyer of Schlumber Agassiz Associates, who is the architect for the project. As you know, over the last few years, Disney's been very busy in the campus. We've completed the IRC building, we've completed the simulator, the child care, and we're under construction on the GC3 Phase 2 right now. I would like to go through some of the pictures of the existing conditions. The picture we have here is 932 Grand Central, which is the building that will be demolished. It's, as Mr. Castillo said, this is a tilt-up concrete building. The next photo is 900 Grand Central, which is to the south, and it fronts Grand Central and Flower. As you can see, again, existing concrete tilt-up building. This is a view from Flower Street, and the area here, you'll see in the plan, we also are requesting approval to build in a small piece of the building there for the internal circulation. Here's a plan of what is proposed. The area in the blue is the existing building, 900 Grand Central. In the yellow area, that's on Flower Street and on Grand Central, that's the extent of the new facility. To the left of that is just a one-grade parking. Provides about 97 stalls. As you can see on the slide, the grand total of the building will be about 56,000 square feet. This plan is showing the landscape plan for the project. As you will note in the photos that were previously shown, there's a lot of existing pine trees that we are going to remain. We'll retain those around, and then we are going to add in understory planting, which I'll get into a little bit more detail around here. And then also, this is all new landscaping in this area. This is more of a close-up of the landscaping. One of the improvements here is that we are increasing the permeable surface for rainwater, and we're also using the reclaimed water for the irrigation for this facility. Here's a couple of illustrations of what the facility will look like. We are incorporating the design that we've already used on the simulator building at 1049 Grand Central, as well as the IRC that's on Grand Central as well. And we will basically paint the existing tilt-up facility, and then we will finish the prefabricated steel structure to match it. And we're using the colors that are sympathetic with the studio lot, the terracotta, the cream, and the green. As you'll see here, this is the view of, oops, sorry about that. This view here is along Grand Central. The area, the building is very opaque, and that's because we are building theme park attraction components within this area. We are also going to screen the parking lot area because we don't really want anybody looking in there, taking photos, that sort of thing. Because again, what happens in this facility is they do the research and the development and the testing of components of the attractions that go into the park. So we don't want those seen until we actually unveil the attraction. This photograph actually also shows the landscape. This is the new landscaping, the understory landscaping, as well as the trees that we're adding around the facility. This will be our only entrance, and again, it is pretty nondescript. We do want the architecture to remain muted because it's a very quiet building on the outside and very busy on the inside. The view up above is a view from Flower Street. Again, the pine trees that we were talking about before, and then we'll add in all this understory here. Here's just some elevations of the facility. Again, this area here is the existing facility that's precast, it's tilt-up concrete. We are adding a screen, a metal screen, for all the existing rooftop equipment. And then this is the extent of the new building. We've been working with Alan Loomis in planning, and we have agreed that we would basically take this line all the way across for continuity, as well as the color palette. We've been working with him on that as well. And this shot here is the Flower Street elevation. Again, fairly nondescript. This elevation here is along the rail spur, which we own to the south of this project. The only couple of things that are on this elevation here is this is a dust collection piece of equipment, and then we also have a new transformer that we moved from Grand Central over here. And then this is the west side that will be shown only into our parking lot area. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions.
All right. I will do the same. Mr. Weaver.
Hey, Neil. This is a highly confidential, secure building.
Correct.
That even a council member tries to get in, liable to get shot without permission to be in there, right?
We wouldn't go that far.
I mean, that's taking it.
Mr. Weaver.
That's you overdoing it.
Mr. Juergens, we would recommend that you just humor him.
Beat up.
So if it is so secure, why are you painting the doors green so people that might get in know where to go? I mean, it looks totally ridiculous to put green paint on the doors when you'd like to camouflage the whole thing out. The people working there know where to go to get to the door. Anybody that doesn't belong in there, oh, we'll look for the green door. You know, why?
We've worked with the city and with our architects and with WDI, and they decided that, or we've decided that having the entrance, that small amount of color added to that entrance is okay, yes, because there are folks that will be coming from other WDI locations, and that will be established as the entrance.
Well, you can do it, but I disagree. I mean, that looks ridiculous. I hope that wasn't staff telling you to do it.
I think of them personally as Autopia colors, but maybe even junior Autopia colors. Anyway, Mr. Quintero.
Well, I don't have any questions, but I do want to comment and say I'm very happy. I want to thank the Walt Disney Corporation and specifically Walt Disney Imagineering for continuing to invest in Glendale. There's obviously going to be more jobs coming. There'll be blue-collar type of jobs. I'm sure there'll be welders there and machinists and everything else. So it's just a great employment base. All the parking's been taken care of, easy in and out from the complex. So it's just a big plus, and I'm looking forward to a quick build-out, and we will collect our tax increment on the property, and hopefully everyone will go out and shop in Glendale. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Najarian.
I like the design. I think the green doors are a psychological move, because if they were camouflaged, then it would really send the message that there's something in there secret going on. This way, with the green, it says, oh, what could they have behind there with a green door? Who in their right mind would paint a green door to a facility that you don't want anyone to enter? So I like that psychology. So
my only comment to that, it's totally screened. Nobody driving by anywhere can see. It's totally camouflaged. You'd have to be inside, in the parking lot, to be able to see the green door. So it's only people that have to be in there would know where it is. So, again, I don't see it. It's great. I'm glad you continue to move ahead. One after another, Phase 2 going along. It's doing good. And all the other features, it's nice to have Disney here and continue to bring different elements online is a very big positive for Glendale. So, very good. Just do it.
Mr. Najarian, did you have anything?
No, I'd like to just echo the remarks. We're very glad to see continuing its investment, bringing in well-needed, well-paying jobs. They are well-paying, aren't they? Are you guys union?
Well, there's union components. The Imagineering folks are not union. That's a creative.
Is that? I hope that
Some of the tradespeople are.
vote. But I think it's great, and you're really changing the nature of that creative campus. So.
Thank you.
Mr. Jurgens, I have one question of Mr. Loomis, if I may. Loomis,
Certainly may, Mr. Chairman.
You are our GVTC officially. That is the highest authority in the city. That is the Grand Vizier of tasteful construction, I understand.
If you're giving me a new title, I think I'll accept it today.
It seems that in your department there are new categories everywhere.
Just quickly, the Dean of Design.
There you go.
So many
terms.
Can you please, since you are the highest authority in this area on our campus here, can you please settle the green door controversy?
I will do the best I can and take some responsibility for the suggestion for the green doors, Mr. Weaver. On past Disney projects, these three color scheme is what they've used, the sort of terracotta and the kind of cream color. They reserve the green kind of exclusively for doors, windows, and kind of elements where people typically touch the building, kind of accent color. So on past projects we've worked with Disney, the green has been used basically for doors and windows.
Didn't know that.
That's their kind of basic standard we've established on the campus.
So Phase 1 has green doors and green window
If I
treatment?
recall, the Phase 1 buildings, yes, yeah. And some of the other industrial buildings that are of this character that they simply just repainted.
Had no
or
knowledge of that.
refinished.
And that is why you are the Grand Vizier
Thank you.
of tasteful construction. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
Thank you.
Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Wait,
close the public
Actually,
hearing.
let me close the public hearing.
Now I'll
and then,
move.
Thank you.
6C1.
Second.
Motion and a second. Mr. Kasakian, if you would call the roll, please.
Agency members Najarian,
Yes.
Quintero,
Yes.
Weaver,
Aye.
Chair Friedman, Vice Chair Draymond.
Yes.
Agency member staff comments?
I hear none.
To adjourn it.
I think we don't have any new business, I believe. Is that right? Okay.
Will we adjourn?
We have a second.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thank you.
Mr. Howard?
Back from housing?
Housing.
Mr. Chair, members of the Housing Authority, would be appropriate to reopen the Housing Authority meeting now returned from recess, and we do have a motion to report out of closed